Hello, I'm Robert Martinez, State Historian of New Mexico, and this is, once again, New Mexico History in 10 Minutes. Brujeria y Hechizeria, witchcraft and sorcery. These are ideas that are as old as time itself. They are universal concepts that can be found in every culture around the world. And New Mexico is no exception. When I was growing up in Albuquerque, my family would take trips to Mora, and when we kids wanted to go outside and play, we were always told, don't go by Doña Eufemia's house, she's a bruja. Or stay away from the acequia. You can get caught by a bruja. These ideas were told to us to entertain us, to scare us, but also to protect us and to protect neighbors from us. These ideas of brujas are part of our culture. When we would drive by Abiquiu when I was a kid, my dad would always tell us, look, kids, this is a town of brujas. And we always wondered what that meant. Were they doing evil things? Were they casting spells? Well, these weren't just stories and fables. These are actually concepts that are based in history. When I was at UNM in the 1990s studying for my master's degree, I wanted to learn more about these witchcraft beliefs. So I started delving into the church history, the cultural history, Inquisition history, and I started to see that there were actual cases that fed these ideas of brujas and hechiceras, witches and sorcerers here in New Mexico. Probably the earliest case we have is 1607, when a Mexican Indian woman named Maria de Zamora was accused of witchcraft. She's accused of using powders and herbs to poison her fellow citizens. Jump to the 1630s, and you have a woman named Beatriz de los Angeles, another Mexican Indian woman, who is said to have given her daughter, Juana de la Cruz, a powder to poison her husband. Wow, that's not a healthy family dynamic. But what you start to see in the records are these ideas that Native American women are witches sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. They're the ones who get accused, and oftentimes it's their Native American cultural practices that are perceived to be evil or doing evil things. These were different times than we live in, remember. And back then, to poison someone, to poison their food in the name of vengeance, or the ideas that you're using spells to do it, conjured up ideas of devils and evil spirits. And for Franciscan priests at that time, who perceived the world in a battle between God and Satan, this just seemed like something that you had to deal with on a daily basis and eradicate. So I want you to keep that in mind. There's also the idea of the pact with the devil, un pacto con el demonio. There was a man named Luis de Rivera, who was from Spain, who as a 13-year-old ended up working in northern Nueva España, northern New Spain, as a cowhand. He worked on a farm, and supposedly he entered into a pact with the devil. He was on a caravan to New Mexico and was put under investigation when some of the fellow ciudadanos, fellow travelers, accused him of having a unique relationship with evil spirits. And he said in his investigation that a negro, a black man, had taught him how to write his name in blood in a book that had images of demons and devils to turn himself over to the devil, because it was said by the black man that the devil controlled aspects of our lives, such as winning a bullfight or catching wild horses or any other aspect of our lives. And the black man was supposedly a real friend of the devil by having a tattoo under his foot of a demonic face. So these were the things that were happening in New Mexico in the 1600s, these ideas of witchcraft and demonic spirits influencing the lives of the colonists. Now, I want you to keep in mind, these ideas were a blend of Spanish, witchcraft ideas brought from Spain, Mexican Indian witchcraft ideas brought from Mexico, and then they blend in New Mexico with Puebloan ideas of witches and people who could control the physical world with spirits. Now, we also have to consider that a lot of this was perceived through the eyes of Spanish priests, Spanish officials, and Spanish colonists. Some of it may not have been witchcraft or sorcery at all. It might have just been native practices that were deemed really exotic and otherworldly to the colonists and settlers. One thing to keep in mind is that, at least officially, ideas such as witchcraft were considered different from sorcery. Witchcraft was considered communal and invoked evil spirits and a pact with the devil, and was considered heretical against church teaching, whereas sorcery was considered less of a problem, more superstition. Individuals who would use plants and herbs and powders to try to control sexual desires or love in another person. So these were the ideas that were floating around at the time. Spanish witchcraft was an amalgam, a mix of Catholic ideas, Roman pagan superstitions, and add to that Visigothic ideas from the northern countries, nature, religion ideas that were brought to Spain. And also we have to add to that Sephardic Jewish beliefs and Moorish Muslim beliefs brought from the Mediterranean world, belief in amulets, and the idea that you would have to go seek help outside of the religious world, the religious teachings, in order to be healed of a spiritual problem. So you'd see Catholic women going to see Jewish or Moorish adivinas, saludadoras, entenderas, and of course, curanderas. That transfers to the New World, where you see Catholic priests, Catholic officials, and Catholic settlers going to Native American or mulatto people to seek help to control the love of another person or to heal themselves of a hex or a curse. So New Mexico in the 1600s, as we see, has all of these elements. By the 1700s, we still see ideas of brujeria, witchcraft, and sorcery in New Mexico. In the 1730s, in 1733, there was a case of witchcraft trials at Isleta Pueblo, when there was a man, a spiritual leader of the Pueblo, who was said to have cursed a couple from the Albuquerque area, a Garcia man and woman. Apparently, he had given them a drink to heal them of some illness they had, and they fell into a stupor. It seemed that they were dying, if not dead. And so an investigation was performed by the local magistrate, Juan Gonzalez, and it turned out that they were Native Americans, and they weren't all Pueblo Isletan people. There were Apache people, there were Hopi people. It shows you how multicultural even some of these Pueblo communities were. They were supposedly practicing brujeria and witchcraft, and the leader, the man, was obstinate in his operations and his application of medical practices, and he would not renounce what he was doing, and he was punished by the Spanish officials of the time. But what I find fascinating about the case is this intimacy you have with Pueblo people, with Apache people, with Hopi people. They are all interacting with the Hispanic settlers. Obviously, they are trusting each other and giving each other medicine to heal one another. So I found that quite fascinating. But the bigger issue starts to take place later on, about 30 years later, in Abiquiu. And we'll find out in another episode why Abiquiu came to be known as a town of brujas. Talk to you soon. Hasta luego. Bye.